The feelings of shame, unworthiness, self-disgust, fault, all make sense in the context of trauma. But here is the thing that's interesting about unworthiness. It's really a belief. There is no emotion of unworthiness. Unworthiness is a belief. I am worth nothing. I am worth less. I'm worth less than nothing. And that belief is a survival defense, part of the total submission response, the collapsing, numbing, loss of energy goes with the belief I'm not worthy and facilitates total submission. Because if we were thinking, wait a minute, you can't do this to me, I'm a person of worth, we wouldn't collapse, we wouldn't go numb. And therefore, having to submit would be 10 times more painful. And often clients fight with me. They say, you don't understand. You're talking as if worthlessness is a belief. I am unworthy. That's a fact. And if you don't get that, you have failed me. So what kind of position does that put the therapist in? If you don't believe I'm unworthy, you will fail me. And the therapist is thinking, but if I do believe you're unworthy, I failed you. So many of my colleagues and students have talked about that struggle in which they end up saying, no, you're worthy. And the client says, no, I'm not. Yes, you are. No, I'm not. Which never gets us anywhere. But if I say to the client, well, obviously we have different assumptions. Your assumption is that it's absolutely true that you are unworthy. And my assumption is it's absolutely true that believing you were unworthy was a brilliant survival strategy. And then the client will say, but your assumption is wrong. It is true. And I say, well, I think my assumption is true. And the client will say, no, my assumption is true. And then I usually say, you're sticking to your story and I'm sticking to my story. Your story is you really are unworthy. My story is believing that was a great way of surviving. So we have two different assumptions. So let's just make room for both. Now, you might not think that that was making progress, but as soon as there's room for two different viewpoints in the environment, that's progress. Because it's different from, I'm unworthy, no, you're not. The client and I have agreed. They're sticking to their story. I'm sticking to my story. One of the interesting things is that clients rarely ask, how is unworthiness a survival strategy? Once we have agreed that we each have a different assumption, they rarely ask. But if they did, the way I would address that is I would say, what if you had believed that you were worthy and it was wrong to treat you that way? What if I say, what if you had looked your father straight in the eye as if to say, you are a bad man? And they shudder with fear. And I say, so it wouldn't have been safe to have felt worthy. And so what did happen as a result of your feeling unworthy? And they say, I did what I had to do. And I say, okay, can we agree that the result was that you did survive? And usually that we can both agree on. It's sometimes clients will say, you think this is surviving? Right? I got to live so I could be tortured by shame for the rest of my life. And I say, well, that's why we're here, so that you can say, I've survived and I'm not tortured by shame.